Like, one thing that I can't stand is like somebody with like a passing interest in Profanatica, or we just want to see what it's about. And I'm like, get the fuck out of here. You should know what it's about, and you should be here for that.
Greetings, Legion, and welcome to episode 267 of Into the Necrosphere. This week, a living legend finally makes his debut on Into the Necrosphere. Paul Ledney of Profanatica joined me to talk about their new EP, Wreathed In Dead Angels. Paul is also a guy that grew up during the birth of death metal and of black metal, so of course he had some pretty strong feelings on both. We spoke about that, we spoke about some of his personal influences, some of his personal inspirations, and we also got into a host of other topics besides that. So that's going to be coming your way very shortly. I can tell you right now, this is not the last time that you're going to see Paul on the show. We got on famously, and you're going to find out why in just a few minutes. Before we get to that, though, we have us a premiere on the Sphere. Death Horde is a brand new project that features the musical stylings of Drugoth and Shograth, two names that basically anybody who has been following this podcast for longer than a month should be familiar with. However, I'm aware that there are many of you that are brand new, particularly after the J-Dog episode. So if you haven't yet checked those out, brace yourself. From the upcoming Death Horde album, simply entitled Death Horde, this is, for the very first time ever, their brand new single, Heretical Condemnation. Death Horde is our premiere on the Sphere this week. You just heard a track called Heretical Condemnation. And that record, I don't believe has got a release date just yet, but if you follow them on Instagram, you'll almost certainly be able to find out when it does. I'll post their Instagram link in the description to the podcast. And of course, when the album comes out, you head over there, buy it, and let Drugoth and Shograth know who sent you. Friends, if you are new to the podcast, and the numbers suggest that there's a very good chance that you certainly love yourself some J-Dog, which is not a bad thing. But if you are new to the podcast, you may not be aware that I am a proud member of the Horsemen of the Podcasting Apocalypse. We are a collective of content creators that are dedicated to fighting mediocrity from Monday to Sunday and bringing you the very finest in high-quality podcasting entertainment. So if you like horror movies, you like metal, you like the dark shit, then all of our shows really will be completely and utterly up your street. We start on a Monday with Horror Wolf 666. That is hosted by Brandon Legion. Yours truly casts hexes and slays poses on Into the Necrosphere every Tuesday. On a Wednesday, we've got Mike Hill of Tombs and Scorpion Throne delivering another episode of the long-running Everything Went Black. We also have a deployment of Iblis Manifestations. That is hosted by Cheyenne of Trivax. On a Thursday, Sensei Mike Hill returns, and he is joined by his co-hosts, the Outlaw Mike Scandado and the Professor Jeff Kashid, for one of my favorite podcasts of the week, Necromaniacs. And then also on a Thursday, we have our first installment of the Sinister Minister, the Reverend Gaahl Haikara's Soul Knox, and he wraps things up on a Sunday with the second installment of Soul Knox for the week. So make sure you check all of those out. Also, make sure you don't go anywhere when I'm done talking to Paul, because it's news rant time. And standing before the throne of almighty judgment this week will be new tracks by Thronum Vrondor, Baest, Unmerciful, Dark Angel, Wyrd, Necrophobic. Might even check out that new Catatonia if I'm drunk enough by the time I start recording the news rant. We're going to be talking about that Danzig Nazi merch scandal. We're going to be talking about the very smug trailer for the new Metallica documentary, Metallica Saved My Life, and much more. That's coming up later on in the show. For now, though, sit back and enjoy as I welcome to the podcast for the first time, but most definitely not the last time, a legend of legends, the great Paul Ledney of Profanatica. I wanna start by just making one comment. A couple of months ago, you guys posted on, I think it was Facebook or Instagram that I saw it, where you said that you feel like Profanatica is just now approaching its prime. And I've got to tell you, when I heard Wreathed in Dead Angels, when Nathan sent it over to me, I thought to myself, that is absolutely correct. And there's not a lot of bands that can say that, given how long you guys have been in the game for. But this EP to me feels like the work of young men.
Okay, thanks so much. I truly believe that. I don't know. I feel like we are entering our prime, and we put a lot of hard work into the EP. And I was like, "Fuck it, I'm just going to say that because I really believe that." So I seen so many bands, and including, to be honest, we were kind of. There was like a time where we were like on autopilot. And it still was good, and I still like believed in it, but it wasn't what it could have been. So for me, this EP is kind of everything that I wanted. The look of it, the feel, like the way the songs are shaped and how they flow one into another, like kind of really rapid fire.
Well, I feel like, you know, I enjoyed Crux Simplex, but when I heard the 6th hour for the first time, it was like, fucking hell, there's a real, it feels invigorating, this, you know, there's a real, like the testosterone is up on this, you know, you got that really low rumble going on in the, you know, in the way the guitar sounds, just in the way everything sounds. It sounds darker, it sounds more aggressive. You know, it kind of has that punky element that you've always had, but I feel just like all of the great things about Profanatica on that song, and I think it's true of the rest of the EP as well, the everything is just amplified.
Okay, cool. That's kind of what I wanted to do, is like if we're gonna do like the D beat, let's do it like a couple of measures longer and like really hit it hard. That's like what I like to try to do, is to get like almost a live sound in the studio. not me and we did drums and guitar together, but I wanted that like really hitting hard to that to come across. So I wanted to kind of sound like we play live, which is like kind of, we like to go hard and be like aggressive.
Where did this refreshed motivation come from? Because I watched you talking to Justin from Hells Headbangers, and something that you mentioned, that you dropped a nugget there about your wife nagging you to kind of take the band more seriously, which I thought was quite cool, because I was like, you know, people see us as you know, rough and tumble, you know, metal guys. They don't necessarily think there's a woman in the background encouraging you to do something. But I was curious as to, you know, now in 2025, did she play a role in that, or what has got you so pumped for what Profanatica does?
I think when we played at Hell's Head Bash, I'll be perfectly honest, we played at Hell's Head Bash, and it didn't go over well. And it wasn't what it should have been, and it wasn't what it could have been. And it was on that ride home where she's just like, that sucked. And you have to do, like, you have the potential to be like top dog if you put the work in, because that was kind of shit. And that's really it.
What had happened at the show? Because I wasn't there, and I actually wasn't even aware that, you know, that you guys hadn't gone over well.
For me, it didn't go over well, and for the people that maybe saw us for the first time dug it. But we weren't really prepared, because and some of the members weren't really prepared. Let's just say that. So we did, like, Eric and Justin gave us like the downstairs of the Agora Ballroom. We were able to practice all day, and I thought the practices were good, and the stage was kind of big for us to be like, we didn't really, it was like a one-off. So we went from doing nothing for many years to this like big stage with no sound check, and it just wasn't the best.
Did you feel on stage that it wasn't going well?
No. Well, no, because I did pretty good.
which is critical, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I did okay, but now that we have like hundreds of shows under our belt, we kind of know what we want to do and like how to do it.
Yeah.
But it was so. My wife's a metalhead. She likes all different styles of metal, old school better, like 80s shit, but she's definitely not like Yoko Ono, where she's like, you need to do this. It was really that one thing that kind of, and because she never given me advice or said anything, I kind of took it to heart. Because I remember the drive home, it was like 7 hours, and I was just sitting there like with my head down.
That must have come as a bit of a surprise then. I mean, if she wasn't, how long, just out of curiosity, how long had you guys been together up to that point?
Let me see. Almost 20 years.
All right. Okay. So this was like, it was a long, you know, it wasn't like you met each other yesterday and, you know, she gives you that feedback. And that was the first time that she'd ever given you feedback on something that you had done or a show that you'd played?
Yeah. Well, not, you know, negative. Yeah. Like she's seen us play good before. And then we took like 3 years is like a long time of a break. So if we take like 3 years off, now I know what I know. So I know what has to be done to get ready. So we all did, you know, we didn't want to do that. We kind of owed it to Hells Headbangers, even though we weren't 100% ready. And one of the things is like, I skipped a track. Like we were supposed to do Scourging and Crowning, and I just skipped it. Completely forgot about it.
I'm about to say, is that just sort of in the heat of the moment?
Yeah,
you just didn't get around to it.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah. So what specific things did she point out to you about that performance that hadn't sat well with her? It's like that vocalist and drummer, fucking, he needs to leave the band. That's step one.
Just that the other members weren't ready.
Yeah.
How's that?
Yeah. Which is a lot. I get the sense there was more, but
it wasn't me.
I won't pry. Yeah. No,
it wasn't
fair.
me. I'm still cool with the person. They know what they did. Oops. Sorry about that. Fuck.
I guess the thing for you as well is, you have it's not entirely unique, but it's a different vantage point to the vast majority of frontmen, the vast majority of guys that stand on stage with a bass and guitar, or dude who's doing vocals and playing bass, or dude who's playing guitar and playing bass. You're playing drums. You're kind of seeing the band almost from a slightly different vantage point. And I guess, I wouldn't know because I've not been in that position myself, but the way that you experience or see the crowd would be different as well. Because, I've always been incredibly impressed and amazed by people who drum and vocal at the same time, because I couldn't conceive of how that would be possible. And I've spoken to one or two people on the podcast about doing it, and they kind of explain how they manage it, but I find it's mind blowing to me, partly because I can't drum worth shit, and to be able to do the vocals you do plus drumming is crazy to me. But that must also change then the way that you see how things are unfolding on stage, and how you experience the audience, because you would be so preoccupied with what you're doing on the kit and behind the microphone.
Kind of. I could see, like, as a whole. Like, I'll look out in, like, peripheral, kind of see what's happening. But I try not to look out there too much as like it would be for, like, a front man who's right there and seeing it.
Yeah.
I could, plus there's lights in your face. So I could kind of get a feel. I know when people are just standing there. You've probably seen some of my posts on Facebook, me calling people statues. And I thought about that, and I'm like, shit, was I kind of too hard on them? But no, I stand by it. Like, the people that I called statues they could have just printed up a shit ton of cardboard cutouts and put them there. Yeah, and you're talking about, like, places that is like 3 hours from a different country. So they all have YouTube. They must know that people don't behave like that at a show. And I was thinking of not saying who it is, but it's Spain. They're one.
Oh, well, I was going to, because again, I saw your comments about Spain, and I was gonna. I can't speak Spanish for shit, but I was gonna try and freak you out and come on and pretend to have a Spanish accent.
So here's the other thing, though. This Spain is a different type of Spanish. Like, we're like go over really well, like in South America. So it's like Austria is another one, standing there with the arms folded. It's not everybody. They want to take it in, and I can't understand that. I'm like, take it in somewhere else then. Like, one thing that I can't stand is, like, somebody with, like, a passing interest in Profanatica, or we just want to see what it's about. And I'm like, get the fuck out of here. You should know what it's about, and you should be here for that. Now, there are some people that check it out, and they're like, I like this. I'm not even into metal. I don't know why I like it. This is really abrasive, and I'm into it. And those I consider are real people, like, kind of newer people that don't really follow the scene, but they kind of like what we do. So,
are you starting to see, when you go to shows, are you starting to see generational fans? Because again, you've been around for a while. Do you see, like, parents and kids, or, father, son, or whatever the case may be, folks turning up and saying, or, guy introduces himself and says, hey, my dad, got me into your earlier stuff?
Yeah, I do. And I kind of like that, because I think it's, like, real like that. kind of. It's like more organic if that happens.
Well, it's I think when the previous generation passes music on to their kids, at least there's still some of that discovery element to the way that they get into the music, because I feel like that has taken away a lot of the like having music so readily available for everybody, and it's within everybody's reach to listen to basically whatever band they want to at any time, no matter how rare it is. That's kind of taken away some of that excitement, that discovery. Like if you opened a zine or you opened Metal Maniacs or something, you would see all these bands. Sometimes it's bands that are putting out demos, or if I grew up in South Africa, so it would be stuff that was coming out in the early 90s that you wouldn't be able to get hold of ordinarily yourself. So you dig around, meet people, try and trade tapes and do stuff like that. But just that excitement of hearing something fucking that blows your socks off for the first time that you've been desperately searching for. Kids don't have that nowadays. And I think that's why there's less value placed on music. And I would go as far as to say I think that's why you see less energy at shows, is because they no longer have to physically hand over money to purchase a record. And unless obviously they opt into wanting to collect vinyls or CDs or something like that, but it's no longer a kind of key to actually accessing that content, handing over money. You understand what I mean? It's like they can just get it if they want it for free,
like instantly.
Yeah,
I know what you're saying. That could be part of it. The other thing is, it really depends, and I get it. People are different in every country. People are different in every state, but like there's some key places that we hit, and the people just know it, and they're that's why they're there. And that's, I guess, what I'm looking for. Like when we hit LA, everybody is there. They know our shit. They're waiting for us to come, and they're like showing that they're appreciating it and kind of like lose their shit. And that's kind of the way it should be. Now, like when I used to go to shows, I dove a couple of times, like when I was younger. But mostly I just would kind of hide off around the side and like watch the drummer and shit like that. Like when, Slayer came and we saw them like at a smaller venues. The other thing is that, I don't know about these statues. I don't know what their deal is. I guess the thing that really that made me post that is that when we started playing, the crowd was like a good 15 feet in front of the stage. There was like nobody up front. And I've experienced that I think 2 other times. The last run we did, we went to California. It wasn't LA, but it was some weird place, and everybody was sitting down at tables.
Sitting down at tables.
Yeah, it was the strangest thing.
Jesus.
So, and when we were done, they were like, "That was great. I can't believe that." And I'm like, "Really? You're kidding?"
As they sipped their glass of Beaujolais and sat at the candlelight table. It's incredible.
Yeah, I was like, all right. So what I did was, there was like a handful of people that I was talking to after that liked our shit, and I put them all on the guest list for LA, which was like the next day. And I'm like, come tomorrow. And they're like, oh, all right. I'm like, it's going to be different. You're going to see the real deal tomorrow. And they came and they saw it. So I don't know why some places just stand there. And
I think also you kind of touched on it now, but there is also, there's something to the way that a venue is set up, and a venue is the layout of the venue, that I think that also contributes to energy or a lack of energy at a show. I remember seeing Broken Hope at a fucking complete septic tank in London called the New Cross Inn. And I said to Jeremy afterwards, like, I feel so sorry for you guys because you just turned in my view, one of the best death metal shows I've seen in the last decade. Like, completely pro on stage, energy, aggression, fucking testosterone, like everything that you want to see in a great death metal band. And the problem with the venue was there's a bunch of fucking picnic tables all over the place. So even if the people want to get, even if they want to get rowdy, they're going to be running into the picnic tables. But then there's, these fucking lazy slobs just sit down on the picnic tables or just kind of, lean on it. It's just not, it's not conducive to, things getting a little chaotic.
A little bit chaotic would be good.
Yeah.
The other thing, and I take a lot of heat for saying this, but it really seems like the majority of people can't go like 20 minutes without refilling like their giant beers, or smoking. And that's a thing. Like, we played in New Mexico, and pretty much because you couldn't drink in the venue, but it was connected to the bar, the whole place like loved it. Great people, great sound, great fest, but they were watching from the bar. You know what I mean? There was just a handful of people like kind of up close.
Oh, also, now that you can't smoke in venues anymore, now they have to go stand outside to smoke.
It.
So that disrupts things even more.
Yeah, that was happening too.
You're teetotal though, you're not?
What do you mean?
Like you don't drink alcohol,
no,
and that sort of stuff. How long? Just out of curiosity, how long have you been like alcohol free for?
Since I want to say 1994.
Was there anything in particular that made you decide to do that?
No, just kind of stopped.
Yeah,
and
just the hatred of hangovers.
Yeah, it was getting old already. Yeah. So I want to say 94. I was 24. So I was kind of like, okay. I was like done with all that.
Yeah. I mean, I've when I was in my mid 20s, I probably indulged a bit too much, but I like a glass of wine. I have never, maybe 2 glasses of wine. What I've never enjoyed, and I detest hangovers so much that even when I start to feel drunk and I realize, oh, fucked up, tomorrow is going to be a write-off, that just puts me off drinking for weeks on end. Mm-hmm. So that's why I've never drunk to excess. I can't stand like the idea of a day being ruined because I feel like dog shit, and it's because I did it to myself. I can't abide by that. But no, I was, as I said, I heard you mention that to Justin, and I was quite curious about it because, as we're talking about, fans hanging out at the bar and stuff like that, not everybody, the vast majority of people in the metal scene don't subscribe to that. So I was wondering whether there was any reason for it.
No, I mean, now, especially if I want to kind of stay focused, like if we're on tour, like, I'm pushing every night pretty much with my vocals as hard as I can. And we never take it easy. And the thing is, my secret is I drink as much water as possible and get as much sleep as possible. Like I never go, like if there's an after party, I never go. Unless it's like the last night kind of thing.
Yeah.
And usually I have to be like on a flight back home after that.
Yeah. Are you generally much of a party guy? No,
I'm not a party guy.
No, me neither.
No.
I explained it to somebody the other day. I'm a introverted extrovert. If I meet somebody one-to-one, I can get on with them. Great. I fucking hate being around groups of people. I hate being in large clusters of the herd.
I mean, if I could pick all the people, then yeah.
Yeah.
And if we're like listening to what I pick. So I'm not at a show with a huge crowd bummed out or anything saying, oh, I need to get out of here. Like, I love it. I like it there. But for like partying, I don't know. It'd have to be something really good. for me.
Yeah,
to go.
if it's like I could imagine enjoying a sizable barbecue with friends, good music playing, just good company. But the average get together is not my it's not my speed.
And it's really late. I mean, I'm up early and I kind of like start grinding, and man, if it's like really late, I play all these things like through in my head, like what time do we have to get up? What time are we leaving to drive there? Because I get invited to shit here at home too. You know what I mean? And I'm like, do I have to go? That's my go-to question. Like, what would happen if I don't go? It'd be better without me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You kind of spoke about drinking a lot of water, getting a lot of sleep on the road, but I also heard that you do at least, I don't know if it's ahead of a tour or during a tour, you do a load of cardio. Like you've got a proper, which I think is essential, by the way, but you have a proper training regimen for basically optimizing your performance on stage.
Yeah. So I don't know who the hell told you that, but
I've got sources.
Okay.
Well, so I'll tell you what. Actually, you went on tour in, I think it was 2024 with a very good friend of mine. I call him Sensei Mike Hill of Tombs.
Okay.
Yeah, it's him. It's him that mentioned it to me.
Okay. So yeah, right now I'm in that mode.
Yeah.
So basically, it's kind of like a hike that I do, and it's all uphill. It's like a mile uphill, and I kind of figured out a little path, so it's like uphill on the way there and uphill on the way back. So I'm doing that and a lot of breathing exercises, because back in the day, and I don't want to talk about this again, but that show we did, it was like, that wasn't that good. It was like song number 2. And I was like, I'm gassed out, and it's not really from drumming. It was more from vocals and not breathing properly, because I hadn't been in the zone. You know what I mean? Like, and we'd never toured before. So before our first tour, even, we've never played like one night after the other.
Yeah. Yeah.
So well, I'm preparing for like a tour, or if I go into the studio, as if I was like fighting, like a fighter would do like a camp. I'll do like a whole thing like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is absolutely, as I said, in my view, absolutely critical. I was in a band way back in the day, and I remember the first show we ever played, completely overlooked just how strenuous it is to be on stage. And I got on, jumping around, giving it your all for the first, 1 or 2 songs. I remember hitting song 3 and just thinking, oh my God, I'm going to faint on stage. I am this close to passing out on stage. And I genuinely think a lot of people, I mean, I know somebody, I'll mention it off when we've stopped recording, but I mean, I know somebody from a very big band that passed out on stage. And I had warned him. I said, like, before you go on tour, go to the gym, get on a fucking treadmill, get on the bikes or something like that, or just spend a month getting your cardio up, because you're not going to make it otherwise.
That's true. And I've been there. Like, I will look to my left where I put our set list, and then I used to be like dead tired, and we'd be on like song 2 or 3, and I would see like 12 more songs, and I'm like, what the fuck? Why did we pick these? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're kind of like a little bit harder, like on the vocals. But a couple times I got sick. Usually it kind of would happen after, but for the most part, right before, I'm good. Right before we go, it's just constant water for me.
When you started this training, was that was after the conversation that you had with your wife?
No, I just like, I started like, this is 2016. So that this show happened, and I said, I'll do this properly. I got to get like a real lineup. and people that are available to do shows if we're offered. So I want to say like 3 years I've been doing this. Actually, yeah, before Crux Simplex, 2.5 maybe. I started working on my cardio.
Do you do anything in terms of diet, or is there any changes from that regard? Like anything else, I guess, to supplement just your energy levels and your endurance?
So I'm doing what's called a dirty cut, and I don't know if that's a real thing, but I heard that term. So, like, I'm not eating any candy. Like, a friend of mine during our South America run is like, dude, you have to get your diet under control because you're just eating like cookies and candy and shit. And that's one of the reasons you're gassing out. So I'm not eating like potato chips or anything. Sometimes once I get it to this point that I could like kind of coast, I can eat shit if we're on tour, if I want. Like I won't eat French fries or anything now, but I will have like pizza here and there.
I'm about to say, do you have a particular vice when it comes to food?
Maybe I like pizza, I like pasta. I've been known to eat hot dogs. People that know me know that, but mostly like I'll eat like protein bars or a shake, and then just have that as lunch. Yeah, I'm getting better with it. Like the thing is, like, it's kind of expensive to eat that good, and I don't really know how to cook. I can make certain things, but
the thing is, it's also cooking food that tastes decent. That does take time, right? So it's not if you're a busy guy, because you have you've got a. I'm assuming you've got a job. You've got things you do outside of the band.
Sure.
When you have the band added on top of everything that you do to keep your day to day going, I get it. It's I have it here as well. And my big vice is, you mentioned candy. I'm a comfort eater. So anytime that I've had I have the habit of, if I've had a annoying meeting or something that has pissed me off at work, the first thing I'm looking for is, where's the ice cream? What do we have in the house that I can eat? So,
I used to eat that shit all the time, nonstop. Yeah. In fact, when we were when we did Milwaukee Metal Fest, I heard that J-Dog went to McDonald's that day. He was spotted there, and I kind of confronted him and asked him about that. And when I walked over to him, he was kind of in a dark corner, smoking a cigarette and drinking a beer. And I kind of surprised him, and I go, "What the hell do you think you're doing?"
Yeah.
And he goes, "I'm allowed to do this." And I'm like, "Oh, I don't know about that."
I can't imagine. I can imagine it with a beer. I can't imagine it with a cigarette.
Yeah, it kind of looked weird. So I'm like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, no, it's that is something I have actually literally never done in my entire life. I've never smoked a cigarette. My grandmother died of lung cancer. That was enough. When I was young, that was enough to put me off the idea of doing it. But booze I've been a bit more freewheeling with in my life. But the thing that I find fascinating about you, I mean, you have come from in terms of like the eras that you've seen in music, in heavy music, you saw the 80s unfold, you saw the 90s unfold, and you still you're now more excited about what you do, arguably by your own admission, than you were then. What is it that motivates you, like that makes you, be as invigorated about Profanatica as you are right now?
I'm not sure. I think that so this EP, like, I love the look of it, the sound of it, like I said, the feel. And right now I'm fully satisfied with it. So there's always, when a band records, they're like, it's close to, it might be like 90% to their original vision. So this is like dead on 100% what I wanted. So I'm not looking to record in the future. But if I had to, let's say somebody's like, look, you have to put out 10 new songs. I could do it. And we work in such a narrow like playing field. So I have to stay on top of my game to make sure that the ideas are fresh whilst not changing our style and still follow our system and our way of doing things. You know, I did have a friend, I sent him some advanced tracks of this, like before they were mixed. And he goes, I don't know how you're doing it in such a narrow window, but you've managed to like be yourself and just plus. And the other thing I'll say is I'm doing a lot of deep vocals, like death metal style vocals, which I used to do when I was in Incantation. That's the way I did it. And I'm mixing the two, as you heard.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did you hear the whole thing yet?
I have.
Okay. All right, cool.
I have, and yeah, no, you can definitely hear that. The thing with deep vocals, you find like people go one of two ways. You know, either they really, really struggle as they get older to maintain that depth, you know, or they become like Glenn Benton, where it's kind of like, you know, it's almost, I would argue with him, a little too deep. And I mean, he's one of my, if you're back on Deicide and on Legion, those are some of my favorite vocal performances in death metal. But yeah, it's do you find going back to that vocal style or bringing more of that vocal style in, is it easier for you to do those vocals nowadays, or is it more of a process, more of a struggle for you to get your voice that deep?
Easy. So like my vocals are like natural when I get into that mode. There's like this texture to my vocals that I kind of have to have. So again, there's like this little like narrow window. I could go higher and sometimes I go lower, but the deep, it's how I used to do it, like back in the day. And then I thought to myself, I'm better at the deep than pretty much fucking everybody. And I'm better at the high than everybody. So I'm just going to mix the two. And that's not to be like an asshole, but like, that's kind of true. So
yeah, but you should be confident in what you can do.
Thanks. And I was like, let me kind of show this a little bit and see if anybody notices. Cause you'd be surprised. There's people that have listened to Profanatica for like 20 something years and they love it, but they know so little about it, about like what our message is, you know, what we're trying to accomplish. But getting back to the vocals, I warm up deep and then slowly graduate to like high. But I don't do any like vocal exercises, but in the van before we play, I will do deep a little bit and just kind of like, you know, do some breathing and that type of thing.
You're not doing any of, what was her name? Melissa Cross. Can you remember those videos? That woman that was teaching people to do death metal vocals, and it was like, oh, you know, she's like an opera singer, but she's this real. My mom was a music teacher, so she looks like somebody that would sit aside my mom at music school, and you know, teach kids how to play the fucking recorder or something like that. But yeah, she did all these videos on, you know, how to do death metal vocals.
That's funny.
But yeah,
so like, I would also. So back in Incantation, when I sang deep like that actually, here's something that nobody knows. There was a Profanatica demo that never got released with the same two songs, Raping of Angels and Final Hour of Christ, on our demo that got released with me doing deep vocals instead of that. And then the other guys are like, you got to do it, you know, like the longer screams kind of. Like, of course, I'm influenced by John from Necrovore and Jeff from Possessed. Like, those are my two people that I would say this is what I want to do after hearing them do that. So when I say my voice is real, it means like I'm pushing hard, but I'm not straining to hold it at a certain like octave.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I like the black metal really high pitch style is fine, but that's not like their real voice. They're kind of doing it quiet, and it's like falsetto, faux black metal, if that makes sense. Not talk shit, but
with you, it's kind of what's coming out is a natural sound. So because it's natural, it can also become a lot more expressive.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And then the other thing is I'm adding a little more inflection in some of the words, and this EP will come with lyrics for the first time. I've kind of kept them hidden, and mostly kept them hidden because they were like personal and made sense to me. But the other part of that I was thinking is, what if people don't dig them? Not like in the large scale, I don't give a fuck, but I'm human, so I was thinking, what if people think these are stupid? Like, I wasn't dwelling on that, but that did cross my mind. So another thing with this EP is I was like reading a lot of death and black metal lyrics going, these look like a fucking 9-year-old wrote them, you know? And mine are fine. Not only they're fine, they're like some of the best I've seen. So I'm just going to put them out. You know, J-Dog wanted these guys are like, you got to put the lyrics this time. And I'm like, all right, cool. So they're there. I'll say that, yeah, kind of have to have at least a working knowledge of the Stations of the Cross, or they're not going to make sense at all. It's going to look like a different language, you know?
Yeah, so I was curious to pick your brain on the religious side of things, because the rumor I had read about you is that you kind of where your jumping off point is on your views on Christianity is you asked a question. You can tell me if I'm right or wrong here. You asked a question in Sunday school for which the teacher didn't have an answer. Is that accurate? Is that correct?
It is.
What was now? You know what? I've got a similar story, which is why I thought it was so interesting. But what was the question?
I got kicked out on day one. I wasn't kicked out per se, but they had to redo like the program. I just like they give you like the pamphlets and stuff and the books. And I was like, we're Adam and Eve cavemen. And she goes, all right, that's enough for today. Like, it was immediate. We were there for like 10 seconds. And I remember I was small. So they were like, all right. I
was going to ask, how old were you?
Let's see, 7 or 8, maybe. And the teacher's like, all right, it's free play for the rest of the session. You guys like play games. So I was like, this is great. Yeah.
Bonus.
So there's also another incident, but I'll have to tell you off camera.
Okay.
It's nothing too bad. Okay. It's just embarrassing.
Well, as I said, I could probably relate to some of it as well. I mean, my question to you, did you, after this incident, was that the last time you went to church, or were you still, like, for a period of time in your youth, were you still forced to go to church?
I wasn't forced, but I was like, cool. You know, they wanted me to, but you know, being a kid, I wasn't stupid. So they were like, you know, if you do this, you'll get this, this, and this, and a big party and gifts and shit. Like when I made my communion, I fought it every step of the way until I found out like how much money I could make doing it. So it was my parents, so I just did it, you know.
So how old were you when you stopped? When you were done, you didn't go to church anymore.
I think after that communion. So I forget how old I was.
Yeah. No, mine wasn't actually a question as much as I remember distinctly having an argument with a pastor once, where he was trying to imply that if a child, you know, if an infant is stillborn, then because they haven't given their life to the Lord, they're going to go to hell. So I said, so you're telling me that you're going to stand there and say that God is a God of love, but He's so loving that He'll create a child who, without any recourse, ability to think for themselves, decide for themselves, if they happen to have the misfortune of dying, tough luck, then you have to be tormented for all of eternity. And I was like, I said to him, I think you're an idiot.
Yeah,
that was what I was kicked out, and that was basically like I had always felt, and I genuinely was forced to go to church, but I always felt like I didn't belong there. I can remember being very, very young and sitting there and just when your skin crawls, you're just like, I don't belong around these people.
I hate it.
That day was the day the final nail went into the coffin.
It doesn't surprise me. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
It's really, I mean, it's a hell of a business, and it's really a force to be reckoned with. Like, there's a lot of power there.
There is, and the thing is, like, I have a degree of, I think I'll say two things. I think those of us that have been through that when we were young, I think we all have quite a unique experience of it and quite a unique perspective on it that I don't think people that had parents who were atheists, I don't think they can share that necessarily. But the other thing is, because I've been through it, I also understand why, the hold that it has on people. Like with a lot of people, when you're trying to kind of shake them out of this hypnosis that they're under, the spell they're under with this nonsense, it's nearly impossible, because it's so deeply embedded in their brains that, torment awaits if I think for myself, that they would literally sooner you take a machine gun and, empty the fucking magazine in their kneecaps than for you to tell them, listen, this is fucking this is fairy tale stuff. Why do you believe this nonsense?
I don't think they want to believe as much as they have to. Like, there's something in there that it just compels them.
Yeah,
they have to. It's almost
that's the perfect word. It is a compulsion.
It's almost not even their fault if you think about it. Like, they're just, going along for the ride, kind of. The damage is done. It's been like so ingrained. So
yeah, no, I completely agree. So, at what point then in your life, after this trauma, did you start discovering heavier music, and did you start getting into into the scene, into just discovering stuff like Baest, Slayer, etc.?
Let me see. So for somebody my age, it's like the standard answer. Like, when I was a kid, I liked Kiss, and then when I heard Black Sabbath, I kind of ditched them. I never really liked Led Zeppelin because my older cousins were like, you got to check this out. And it wasn't, even back in the late 70s, heavy enough for me. So I just kind of passed on it. I stayed with Sabbath. And then, of course, now I like everything for sentimental reasons. And I like 80s hard rock. That's kind of like hard rock / metal, like Riot and shit. You know what I mean? And then I remember getting Ace of Spades when it came out, and I was like, this is kind of the real deal. Because, of course, I was into like Maiden and Priest and shit. The standard, like, my answer is like standard with most guys my age, like how it went from there. The difference between me is, though, when once I heard a band and then somebody else topped it, I kind of put that behind, like I put their album like in the way back of my collection because there was like kind of no need. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
When like, all right, when I first heard like the Morbid Angel demo, then I put the Slayer in the back of my collection.
Yeah.
You know, and there was a lot of shit that came out like early Metallica and early Megadeth that it was okay at the time, but I wasn't like a giant fan of those two bands because I already had Venom. And for me, that's where we haven't really talked about the two different styles of black metal yet, but the shit that I feel is real, being my age, is more the formula of what Venom did because the punk is already built in. It's already part of it. You can't take it out. It's like saying, I want it's like having a car with no tires on it. So do you remember that video that I've talked about this? Fenriz did a video with a blackboard and he wrote down like all.
Oh yeah, no, I remember that really well.
So I need my own blackboard. Let's put it that way, because how we got to here is nothing like how he got to his. You know what I mean? Like start from A and go to Z. Mine has completely different bands on it, and how we got here is like not how they got there. Let's put it that way.
What do you think would be the kind of pivotal bands? Like if you had to outline that, what would be the ones that you put on the blackboard?
So before I answer that, most of the shit that we were into was like punk and hardcore because they were already doing that, what we used to call a thrash beat, which is your standard like beat, and and then it escalated to blast beats like way before Morbid Angel did that or Terrorizer did it. I mean, it was around for years and years in that scene. There was like, you had like metal and punk, and they were running parallel. One of the earlier shows I saw was Slayer at the Ritz in '86, and it would like blew my mind. And I want to say a week after that, I forget who it was. It might have been in New York. It was, I think, this band Rest in Pieces, Token Entry, and maybe this band Straight Ahead, who used to be New York City Mayhem, which that blast beat originated. Could have been there, could have been the beginning. And then after I found that scene and I saw like how the people were and more real in appreciating the music, I kind of gravitated more towards that. But my list on the blackboard could go, so there's actually three waves. People say the first wave, the second wave. And in my opinion, the first death metal was black metal, like the Hellhammer EP, the Sodom EP. So you could go right from, like, for me, I make a correlation between like Seven Churches, the Necrovore demo, the Morbid Angel demo, Sarcophago in Rye, and then there was this weird in between period where you had Blasphemy in '89, and then who else did they had something out? They had Blasphemy in '89, and that band Samael. That was like around 88, 89-ish. So there was like an in between like Sarcophago and us.
Yeah, and I think you actually have an extremely good point there, particularly about Hellhammer and Sarcophago. And then on the punk side of things, I mean, I know you were really into bands like Poison Idea,
Oh yeah,
and
for
bands like
sure.
that as well, which obviously has informed your sound later. The punk side of things, how did you discover, or how did you get into that? Because I was talking to somebody about this the other day, and again, I think a lot of folks don't necessarily remember, if they weren't born of a certain generation, how separate the two scenes had a tendency of being. Like if you were,
they were, and then they weren't, then they were again, and now they're not anymore. It's kind of hard, like, to say the way shit moves, but I want to say just through trading tapes, I would say.
Yeah.
You remember that band OLD, Old Lady Drivers? They did that one album on Earache, and I had gotten a lot of good shit from those guys because they had Jim and Alan I traded with them, and they had like kind of their finger on the pulse. Like they were the first to get the Napalm Death shit.
Yeah.
Kind of back then. And I remember he sent me the Peel sessions. I think it was before it was released on cassette. So I think he was friends with the drummer of Napalm Death, Mick. And he wrote me a letter and just sent a tape. And he writes, "This shit destroys all death metal." And when I put it on, I was like, oh shit, they're taking like, it's grinding, and that they can't, that term grind. They're taking shit from Repulsion that were kind of like punk metal, and they were taking shit from like Cryptic Slaughter and some other, like, you could tell they were influenced by like Massacre, that Florida band. So it was kind of like a mix of all that, but like just dialed up. For me, that Peel session's still amazing. I had it in high school,
Yeah.
But in terms of like going to see punk bands, there was a club, the Anthrax, in Norwalk, Connecticut, which was a 40-minute drive. And once I found that, I want to say that I went like 2-3 times a week, and kind of was like, if a metal show, all right, so let's put it to you this way. Back then, if somebody would have given me free tickets to see like Iron Maiden or somebody, I probably wouldn't have gone. Not that I have anything against them, but I'm like, I don't want to bother with that bullshit. Like, I already kind of have this. I saw how the people behaved when the bands were on, and like showed like appreciation through like, raging hard. And that was severely missing from the metal scene at that time. Like the passion. It was like no comparison. It was like, watch that and then go to like some Arms Folded. And so don't get me wrong, there was like shit happening, like that Ultimate Revenge video, and there was like people headbanging like nonstop at shows like that. But your average metal show was like so lame compared to what I was seeing already,
What were some of the bands during that time that you saw live where the performance just sticks with you to this day that completely blew you away?
Man. SNFU, this Canadian band, and I can't, somebody asked me that same question last time we were in the Netherlands. There was this older dude, and I don't know how or why, but he was like spinning vinyl after the show. There was like almost nobody there. And then he showed up and started playing vinyl. So I went over. He was playing like Onslaught. I think he played like a Hellhammer song. That band Anti-Scene. He was like just playing like older shit. And he asked me that same question. And I want to say, I think it was 1986. It was SNFU from Canada. Just the way they did their set with such energy, and like that it stuck with me for days and weeks after, to the point that I don't think I saw another band live that made me feel that way. And I'm still searching. I'm constantly searching for that to happen again. I don't know.
I mean, if you kind of jump forward to where we are right now, as you kind of explaining the 80s and, to a lesser degree, the late 70s, there was kind of these giant leaps forward in musical evolution, on a fairly regular basis. As you say, there's Hellhammer, and then there's Baest, and then there's, next thing. You don't really get that all that much anymore. And I'm not one of those people by any stretch of the imagination that dislikes everything new that comes out and, only listens to music from, 1990 and earlier. But there has definitely been a slowdown in evolution. And I often sit and wonder to myself whether that's because there's just not a huge amount more to do. Like there's a finite amount in which you can continue to push things forward, or whether it's have people run out of ideas? Have they run out of steam?
Oh God, I don't know. So one thing I got from watching that band live is that, and it's this. All right, I got a similar feel for watching. I wasn't at that show, The Ultimate Revenge in New York, the Slayer, Exodus, and Venom, but watching that, you could get this feel. I've tried to explain this to people. Like when Slayer was hungry and they first started, they believed in their shit and they played it, their own stuff, pretty much as hard as they could.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Could you still see me or no?
Yeah, no, I can still see you. I was about to say that. I remember, like, every now and then I'll go back, I'll go on YouTube and I'll watch some old stuff. But I remember seeing clips from 1984 of them doing Black Magic and things like that, and it is fucking so intense. Even on those shitty recordings, you can just feel the energy coming out of the screen at you.
Totally, and that's what I want for us. That's what I try to strive for.
Yeah,
I see bands now, some of the newer bands, their playing is amazing and their skill level is amazing, especially like the drummers coming out now. But I don't know how into it they are. Like they're playing their shit and it sounds like the album. But I just don't know what like they're feeling while they're playing it. You know what I mean? I'm not buying it 1,000%.
Yeah,
it could be because I don't listen to that in the car. When I'm driving, like the metal stations.
Yeah.
The stuff on like I'll put on like Ozzy's Boneyard. Maybe they'll play like old Riot or Thin Lizzy, or depends on who's the host. But when I go to that liquid metal, it's like nonsense horseshit that I'm hearing, and I get it that's the stuff that sells, but it's really insincere. How's that?
Yeah, no. I think that's a good word for it. I call it all show and no go.
Yeah,
there's an awful lot of it. I find it's especially true of a lot of modern death metal, but there's a significant contingent of modern black metal where that's the case as well. They sound really heavy, like on the surface of it. Guitars sound heavy, the drums are crazy all over the place, really deep vocals, but it doesn't sound like music that has been recorded or written by people that are truly angry.
They're not angry. Some of them come from rich countries, some popular shit that's out,
Yeah.
That's why I kind of like the South American bands, because if you watch old videos of them, they didn't have the best gear.
No.
But they didn't necessarily need it. It was all like just like feel and like imagination. Like they really went for it. So I don't know. I'm not picking on anybody, but like if a if a band doesn't have that, I could notice it immediately. And I'll tell you what I won't have. You won't see at one of our shows is like a laptop.
Oh, fuck no.
I see so many drummers with like, I don't mind a sample pad for intros and interludes at all. But I see this fucking iPad and a laptop, and I'm like, dude, come on. You know what I mean? Like, I see it. There's one opener in every like city or country that has that shit. And in-ear monitors and everything's digital. And it'd be fine if they were kicking ass, but if they were using it as a tool, then that's cool. But they're not. It's like that half their shit is on the iPad.
Yeah. Well, the thing that I'm not necessarily interested in hearing at a live show is I'm not interested in hearing a perfect reproduction of what you did in studio. If I wanted that, I can listen to the record. I've always thought the magic is, I've seen Deicide as an example, tons and tons of times. The best show I ever saw Deicide play was the one that was recorded and put out by Earache as it was called When London Burns. And I remember standing queuing outside the Mean Fiddler, and Glenn walked past the queue and he had a half-drunk bottle of Jack Daniels in his hand, and I said to my friend, this is going to be a fucking great show. So he was completely boozed up by the time he got on stage. If you watch the video, I mean, he is talking shit in between every single song. And they're playing the songs in this, it's loose, but it's super tight at the same time, if you know what I mean. All the songs were slightly sped up. His vocals are fucking insane. They had Dave Suzuki in the band, so he's doing backing vocals. It's that brief stint where he played guitar for the band, but there was just something about it that was extra special because you knew, and that this is kind of my point about not wanting to see a reproduction. At least I knew at the time, like, I'm here witnessing this firsthand, and they're never going to sound like this again.
It's possible they did sound like that at another time. But I know what you're saying. They're probably just relaxed and really went for it.
Yeah. And what I mean is those little nuances there are little idiosyncrasies and little nuances that are going to be unique to that show, to this night. They'll play the songs in a similar way. They'll still sound the same. But you understand what I mean? And it almost actually is that sort of punk, that hardcore ethos where
it is.
There is no digitization. They go on and they play. There's mistakes. They don't give a shit. They just carry on.
Yeah, not like it's a train wreck, but if something's like not 100% perfect, that's fine. It's about the feel. So like right every time we go on, we're putting our paint on and shit. And right before we walk out, I always go, more energy is better. Like just like that. And it depends on the crowd too. There's been times where I felt like we're delivering and we're not getting anything back. And I don't know if you could see me, but you'll see, like, if you come and see us and the people are like not giving anything back, you'll see me go like this. That just means I'm not going to blaspheme for these fucking people. They don't deserve it. Keep the feedback going. And it's what's interesting is we go in the back, pull their hoods off, and I'm like, those motherfuckers, what the flying fuck? And there's somebody from, the venue or whatever, they're all smiling, and I go, what the fuck is wrong with you people? And they're like smiling at me going, what do you mean? I'm like, forget it. But what's interesting is those, and I'm just being honest, like this is behind the scenes shit. What's interesting is those are the shows that people have told me at a later date that we hit them really hard and they'll never forget it and they love it. And I'm like, I can't see that. You just don't know what's going on in somebody's head,
Well, the thing is, people are also older now. I mean, I'm going to assume you're Mosh retired because I haven't joined the pit at a show since The only time in the last 20 years that I've actually been in the pit was Biohazard in 2015, and that booze may also have had something to do with that.
That's true. People, but this is something different. Like when I say like there's no yelling or anything. Like here's the thing. This is like a point I want to stress. Don't clap after one of our songs. You know what I mean? Like do that with older people, like at the movies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there should be at least, so the people that know our shit, that what I mean by that is they know what we're about. They've seen it. They like it. They appreciate it. Like, I don't like that clapping shit and then dead air. So that's when you'll see me go like this. That means like, fuck these people. They don't know our stuff. I don't know what they're doing here. Maybe they're just checking it out. I don't want them to clap. Everybody's smiling. I want to get the fuck out of here. You know what I mean? It sounds like I'm being totally negative, but this is only after we're putting everything we have into this. So that's some behind the scenes stuff for you.
But it's also in a way, again, you know, you go through a town, maybe like say you're supporting somebody, 20% of the crowd like you get what you do, and most of the people are looking at you befuddled. But those 20% of people, they're going to be telling their friends and everybody that they know, fuck, you need to check them out when they come into town again. Next time round, 50% of the crowd likes you. And that I feel like you're in that place now with the way you're approaching the band, where you should hopefully start to see that compounded interest and compounded energy from fans when you go back through places that you've been to previously.
Yeah, true. And I do need to keep that in mind. And we're willing to earn our stripes every freaking night. You know what I mean? I'm not saying there needs to be 200 people there. The whole place needs to be headbanging, you know, and a giant pit, and they should know the lyrics. I'm not saying that. I'm talking about like cases where everybody's got, mostly in Europe, you know, the arms folded. And I don't know. You've seen shows like that, right?
Of course.
I hate it. And I don't like, so that's one thing about like the standard, what normal people would call black metal. That kind of behavior in the crowd seems really weak to me. You know what I mean? So that's why I go back to there's two. All right, so there's two different black metals in my opinion, and there's also like three waves. There's the first wave we talked about with like the Sodom. Then there's the second wave with I'll say Us, Beherit, Blasphemy, Rotting Christ, Impaled Nazarene, right? All those bands had their own style. They had their own way of doing things. And I don't know if it was like because they grew up in that country, but it was kind of original, you know? And then there was like the Euro style, which was completely not like, so what that was is like they used Bathory more as their formula rather than Venom. And that's the third wave, because in music, a year is a really long time. It's like a lifetime, considering, let's say you got, all right, for me, when I got Possessed Seven Churches, I put it on. I fucking loved it. I still love it. And it's the kind of thing that I listen to it front to back, like nonstop. And by a week after having it, I knew all the songs, you know, I knew all the guitar changes, every fucking cymbal shot that was on that album. You know, you had to pay for it, like you mentioned earlier. So you learn to like appreciate it. And I just, so a year. All right. So let's say you got something you love, and like a week or 2 weeks, you kind of know that shit, right? And this is like the Norwegian stuff happened a good year after all of us were. The only band that was doing something like their own kind of style that was still around back then was Immortal, like the first EP thing they did on Osmos. That was more in that like Euro style vein. So I never looked at bands as to where they're located so much as to like what's in their head and what's coming out. So that I would call the third wave, because they essentially, these bands essentially like commandeered that name.
Yeah.
Black metal. And what that is they took all the death metal out of the black metal.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're very open. They intentionally did that. They're very open.
Yeah. So for me, growing up on like punk, and I like heavy music, you know what I mean? And I'm kind of like a stickler for it. And yeah, they did intentionally do that. And I don't, for me, I don't really like that style. I've been kind of open about it. Like you got, and I'm not pigeonholing everybody, but for the main, you got these guys that look badass. They have badass pictures. They have a badass logo, badass song titles. And then when the guitar comes in, it's like this frilly, like, I need some like slang to where you are. Like this
well,
frilly.
I will say the vast majority of my audience is American. So
okay.
Just be
All right,
yourself.
Good.
Yeah.
They're like frilly, like very feminine, pretty riffs with no fucking bass. Where's the bass on that shit? You know? And I don't know. Nope. Fuck, it happened again. Sorry about that.
I love the saying that Morgan from Marduk used once when I spoke to him, where he said, you know, and maybe this is the distinction between the two. There's black metal where it's about a fucking nerd sitting by the side of the river crying, and there's black metal that's a fist in the face of God.
That's so true.
The latter is the black metal I enjoy.
Totally.
Yeah.
And a lot of people get it. You know, they do. But it's something I'm like, I feel strongly about. And you know, if you look at the old pictures of like, let's say Mayhem, when that guy Euronymous was alive, they're wearing Possessed and Morbid Angel shirts, and everybody was cool with everybody. And then in late 91, 92, they were like, no, you have to sound like us and we have to approve you. Now, keep in mind, this is my point. That was a good year after everybody was doing their shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, never mind Sarcophago Inrise been out at 87 and is much darker and anti-Christian than any of that, like Mayhem or Norwegian shit. Never mind that Thy Kingdom Come demo came out already. And that was like, so I guess what I'm saying is that black death metal plows over just regular black metal, like fucking steamrolls over it with anger and hatred, you know?
Yeah. Look, there's a lot of stuff from the Norwegian scene that I absolutely love. And you mentioned Impale Nazarene. I'm a huge fan of that band. I think they still make really great music to this day. That last record that they did was fucking brilliant.
I didn't hear it. I'm kind of still stuck on the demo.
Well, what I actually, you know, when they got cancelled from Eindhoven Metal Festival, I got completely hooked on Ugra Karma. That track on their Sadhu Satana, I just think is complete genius. It's like
I have to go back and
29 seconds of just pure hate.
I like that they don't give a fuck.
No,
and that is like it's for me. There's that like punk attitude again of like fuck you, you know.
Well,
here's another thing like this like punk shit that I mentioned or hardcore. It means something different to me than a younger kid now, because it used to be about like aggression and hatred. Like when you mentioned Crust, those people nowadays have commandeered that term to fit what they want it to fit. And it wasn't like that. Like if you go back and listen to that first Disrupt 7-inch, it's really heavy shit and angry and like really hard hitting. And that like no fucks given, like feedback. I always kind of dug that. And another like, all right, so me announcing some of the song titles almost as if we're live in the studio. I that's something that I don't want to get rid of. I think I did it once on the EP, right? I did it on the title track. So I dig that.
I was about to say, it's those little touches, those little nuances that just makes it feel like a special experience every time you hear the record.
Cool. Because I think, I remember the first time I did it, the guy at the studio is just like, what is that? So we don't lose our spot? And I'm like, no, we're leaving that in.
Yeah. No, this is the way. This is the way it gets written. So.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Paul, thank you so much for your time. We are 1 hour 20 minutes in, so you got another 2 hours 40 to go before we hit our quota.
Okay. So honestly, I need to come back.
Yeah,
because we didn't get to everything, but I want to discuss like the difference. Let's do a whole section on the two different, like those guys removing the death metal from the black metal and why it happened, and what happened with me and them back in the day. Because there's drama.
100%. Yeah. Well, let's do that for sure.
All right.
Let's do that for sure.
Okay.
I'm gonna stop recording. I'll say something to you off air. The Sixth Hour by Profanatica off their brand new EP, Wreathed in Dead Angels. That is available on Hells Headbangers. Bandcamp link in the description to the podcast. As always, head over there, buy yourself some music. Let Paul and the gang know who it was who sent you. And I want to say massive thank you to Paul for his time. What a great guy. You can tell if you were watching this on YouTube, I think, that we were sort of feeling out the conversation for the first 10 minutes or so. Then we clicked and the conversation just took a life of its own after that. And those are the best kinds of interviews to do. So, like I said, he's going to be back. We were throwing around ideas for a second appearance. The one idea that I'm particularly excited about, I'll remain cryptic over. But safe to say, I think it could potentially be one of the biggest and best episodes in the history of Into the Necrosphere if we pull it off. Right now, my friends, if you have ever used the phrase toxic masculinity for anything other than sarcastic reasons, then grow a sack and hit the bricks, because this is my weekly news rant.
Round them up for judgment. And hang them where the world can see.
All right, Legion, metalstorm.net is where we kick things off as always. I'm going to pull the veil back for just a second and tell you guys there are some nights where I can do probably 3 Into the Necrosphere episodes back to back. I'll jump on, do the intros, the outros, the news rant without a hitch. Tonight has not been one of those nights. So this is now fucking 12 minutes past 9. I'm going to do about an hour's worth of news rant. It's going to take me at least 2 to 3 hours to export the whole file and then to upload everything and finish the editing and whatnot. So it's going to be a late one. But I just feel like too much of a fucking dickhead to post yet another delay on Instagram. So, you know, I know that this is something I do as a labor of love. I do it for free. You know, I don't feel like I owe anybody anything, but kind of at the same time, I do feel like I owe you guys something. For people to keep supporting a show when they've got thousands of other podcasts to choose from, you do feel like you need to live up to your own reputation. But like I said, tonight's one has not come easy or naturally. But anyway, I'm going to put that aside and let's do take 4 on the news rant. By the way, part of why the news rant kept fucking up was because this Christ-forsaken microphone's cable kept on coming out. For reasons I have no idea. It's not done it before, but it keeps coming out. And as soon as it pops out, then Bandcamp stops recording whatever it is that I'm doing. So, and that just, throws everything into disarray. But like I said, pulling back the curtain maybe a little bit more than a professional podcaster might do. But I thought I would share. Okay, first headline over on metalstorm.net, Thronum Vrondor. They have just put out a new single taken from their 5th long player, Drowning in the Distorted Light. That album drops on the 25th of April. Thronum Vrondor, for anybody that doesn't know, from Belgium, started in 2005, put out their first album in 2007. Album previous to the one that's about to come out now was put out in 2021. Not a band that's ever really flown too high up on my radar, but that may soon change. This is a single called To Burn the Absolute. It also features the vocal stylings of Surtur Lenaerts of the band Ars Beneficium. No idea who they are, what they sound like, but anyway, let's hear what this track has to offer us.
Evil, good, natural,
There is a lot that I like about this song. So first of all, you've got that chaotic, swirling, head in the bowels of hell kind of riff that kicks off the song. Reminds me a little bit of Darvaza, and I mean that in a very good way. I think the vocals probably have a little bit of that wrath kind of shout screaming to it as well, which again is no bad thing. And then you've got this sequence that kicks in at around 1 minute 4 seconds, this chanting, singing. We go from, kind of brutal modern black metal to something that's more sort of ritualistic, a little bit like Melpest or maybe Discipline, but absolutely elevates the song, adds so much by way of atmosphere and so much by way of just elements that make the faster parts sound more effective, but the song as a whole just sound much, much more memorable. So really like it. I thought for a second that this record might have been recorded at Abyss Studios. Then I second-guessed myself thinking, does Abyss Studios even record music still? Either way, it's not. It's recorded at a place called The Attic, but they do have in the guitar sound something that sounded Abyss-esque to me. And, again, if you were listening to black metal in the 90s, there was a period of time where so many bands were going there and getting recorded by Peter Tägtgren, and they all had that kind of familiar sound. At the time, it started to get a little bit too samey. But in 2025, I wouldn't mind a band that had that guitar sound, because it was certainly punchy, and we have that here in spades. Top notch from me. I really like this, and I did say that they haven't been flying very high up on my radar, but that's going to change as well. Definitely a band I think that is worth investigating in a whole lot more detail. Moving on. Eshkaton have dropped a new single, but we did listen to that a couple of weeks ago. We listened to the first single off of that, and I didn't like it. So when it comes to tech death, I've said this many, many times before, but I can take or leave it. Same with brutal death metal. We have as well, and I promise you I'll give this a skip, but I just needed to mention it. Drowning Pool, they've unleashed a brand new single called Madness. I can only imagine what a complete bucket of dog wank that is. Dark Angel premiere a new single. Now, over the last couple of weeks, I've been talking about how I've been looking forward to this. Big fan of Dark Angel, and we did check out that bootleg clip 2 weeks ago where they played this song, but it says here, the legendary Dark Angel have officially released a brand new single called Extinction Level Event from the new album of the same name as part of their long-awaited upcoming full-length effort. Check it out. The first red flag that I see here is this fucking horrific AI cover art that they have chosen to use, which looks very much like something you'd see from a Diablo clone video game from the late 90s. I'm not going to hold that against them, but it does suck, and I certainly hope it's not reflective of what the music sounds like. Be that as it may, let's hear what Extinction Level Event sounds like.
1,000 years have ended. The Dark Angel is loose from its prison. Darkness
Well, the first tick in the plus column there are those gang vocals and that breakdown, as a matter of fact, so that's 2 ticks. I mean, this sounds very much to me like I would have expected Dark Angel to sound in 2025. It's obviously been a very long time since they put out anything. Time Does Not Heal came out in 1991. I mean, does Ron Reinhardt still sound as badass as he sounded 30 years ago or 30 years plus? No. But this is also a guy who survived a very severe spinal injury, and that most certainly would have had an impact on his vocal capability, not to mention the fact that he's 60 years old. So, imagining that he was going to sound like the youthful young lad that sang on Darkness Descends and Leaves Scars is ridiculous. But again, you also wouldn't think, hearing that song, that you are talking to people that potentially could be grandparents, very possibly are grandparents. So, the days of saying, hey, your grandma won't like this, kind of is by the wayside as well, because there's a lot of people that are in extreme music that are now either already grandparents or fast approaching being ones themselves. I like it. I'm not blown away by it, I don't think. I think there's been a lot of modern-day thrash that's been better to me than this. But I do enjoy it. And as I said, this is kind of what I expected it was going to sound like. So it is in line with expectations. It does not exceed expectations. I'll tell you one band that always manages to exceed just how dreadful I think they're about to become, and that's Ghost. I spoke about them last week when I gave my list of my 5 most hated bands, but on that note, I actually do have a public apology to make. And, I'm a man who very quickly will put my hands up if I've made a mistake. I made a gross omission when I gave that top 5 worst bands list, and that omission I can only ascribe to the fact that my mind has worked very, very hard to delete all of the files containing any information about this festering pile of dog poo. That festering pile of dog poo is otherwise known as Shitstorm of a Down. Margarita Costa 270 corrected me on the comments to last week's episode. He said it was my question who the 5 bands are that you hate most. You didn't mention System of a Down, and you always trash them on your podcast. That is correct. I do not know why I didn't include them, but they should almost definitely be number 2. They are saved the humiliation and embarrassment and eternal shame of being number 1, purely because of the fact that there are 1 or 2 songs that are not entirely unlistenable on Toxicity, but the rest is complete muck. I have mentioned before that I saw them play live probably, this would have been about 13 or 14 years ago, actually even more than that, and it was so bad that I left after 3 songs. I could not bear it beyond track 3. The first thing that put me off was the fact that there was zero effort made in terms of production, in terms of stage lighting. There were a couple of what looked like bargain basement rugs dragged out on stage, and they all stood on them, stood completely still, played the first 3 songs. I can't even remember the name of that douchebag guitarist of theirs. He leaned into to the microphone after track 2 and he said, "We rode into London, we didn't bother nobody," and then went on to the next song. Just inane, drug-addled dosh. And then Serge Tankian, I mean, I don't like him very much as a human being. He stood there holding his microphone like pinched between his fingers and holding it up to his face like it was a winky and he was about to start sucking like his life depended on it. Just not my kind of band at all. I also tried a few years ago to listen to the first album again because I remember thinking it wasn't too dreadful back in 1998 or whenever when it came out. I made it 90 seconds into the first song and I screamed for it to be switched off. Complete shite, number 2 worst band on the face of the earth. Margarita Costa also commented that I also trash Disturbed. But Disturbed, again, there's mitigating circumstances here. There's 2 or 3 songs off the first record that I actually don't think is too bad. There's a song called Violence Fetish, which I can take. There's a song called The Game. I don't mind that. So at least they've got reasonable songs there, unlike Sniplot, who is a slip crap, who is basically just fucking rubbish from beginning to end. He also then asks me, next question, what are your top 5 favorite non-rock or metal bands or artists? So this is interchangeable depending on the mood that I'm in at any given time. What I'm feeling right now, number 1, Queens of the Stone Age. Number 2, Mark Lanegan. Number 3, Chelsea Wolfe. Number 4, Fugazi. And number 5, I don't know. Let's go with, I was going to say Prodigy. Yeah, let's go with Prodigy. It's summertime. I like listening to Prodigy, especially in the car in the summer. So those are my top 5 favorite non-metal bands or non-metal artists of the day. But like I said, very, very interchangeable depending on the mood that I'm in. On to some more music. Baest have announced their 4th studio album. Their previous one, Necrosapiens, was cut short shrift on this very news rant. But it says here, death metalers Baest announced the worldwide release of their 4th studio album, Colossal, on August the 15th, 2025, via Century Media Records. This was produced by Tew Madsen at Ad Farm Studio. Check out the first streaming single, Misfortunate Son, via the Bandcamp widget below. So, Century Media is clearly sniffing money, or at the very least potential for money, given the fact that they have started the PR cycle for this so early. I mean, the album only comes out in August, and already we're hearing the first single off the record. I don't think that it's bad. It's certainly better than everything that I heard off of Necrosapiens. I mean, Necrosapiens was just drivel. This is mid. So they've made some strides, but I think for anybody listening to Into the Necrosphere, this is just not going to be something that's going to blow you away. This is death metal for people that have either just gotten into death metal, so therefore like things that are not too chaotic, not too angry, not too aggressive, shite like Arch Enemy and Amon Amarth. It's stuff that's palatable, but stuff that to me is just it's not convincingly angry. It's not convincingly evil. I think really the main thing that this song has going for it is I quite like the intro. The riff is quite catchy. As a matter of fact, I would also say the vocalist sounds a little bit better than he sounded on Necrosapiens. But for the most part, this is never ever something that I would willingly go back and switch on. It's just it sounds like death metal for people that aren't really into, at the very least, the kind of death metal that I like. So that one is a skip from yours truly. Unmerciful have also posted a new single. Now, if nothing else, Unmerciful, I know for an absolute fact, because I think we have listened to one of their songs recently on the news rant, is the antithesis to Baest. It says here, Malice Unbound is the second advanced single from Unmerciful's forthcoming LP, Devouring Darkness. It has surfaced online. The new outing comes out on May the 23rd through Willowtip Records. I'm going to pause it right there because that groovy part that we just heard now is probably my favorite part of the song in what I've heard so far. And it's one of the vindicating elements of the track because for the most part, this is pretty nondescript stuff. As far as brutal death metal is concerned, I kind of share J-Dog's criticism of a lot of modern brutal death metal in that it all sounds the same. You will not be able to remember a single track off this record once all is said and done. And sometimes that's fine. Sometimes it's just about the vibe and you want to listen to something end to end that is going to, smash your face into the table and make you beg for seconds. And again, I'm fine with that. I support it. But when I hear something like this, then I also go back to what I've said previously about limited time and what will I invest my time in listening to. Now, I would much rather listen to Harbinger of Woe, the last Brodequin album. I would much rather listen to anything by Dying Fetus. Much rather listen to Cryptopsy. I've been completely and utterly obsessed with Blasphemy Made Flesh and None So Vile. I would also rather listen to Gravitas Maximus by Pyrexia. And I would much rather listen to anything by Suffocation. Which is not to say that if you're a fan of this kind of music that you should give this a skip, but there's just a lot of other options that, in a very, very crowded subgenre of death metal that just feel to me like a better use of my time than listening to Unmerciful. They do have their good points. I think Josh Riley's vocals probably the best point of this band, but they're just not blowing me away. I would say this, though. There's enough interesting stuff going on just in that little groovy section that we heard there that I do feel maybe they've got a great record in them. They're just not, based on the songs I've heard so far, they're just not quite there yet. But that could well change. All right, let's move on, my friends. We're going to give Ominous Ruin and Austere a skip because we listened to Austere, I think, about a week ago, and Ominous Ruin is tech death, so basically by virtue of calling themselves tech death, that's an instant skip. What I have been super excited about hearing is Gaal's new single, Time and Timeless Timeline. This is the second single from Gaal's Wyrd's upcoming record, Braiding the Stories. It is out now and available for streaming together with an official music video. This record, of course, is coming out June the 6th through Season of Mist Records. The first single caught me by surprise, I won't lie, but not in a bad way. Unlike Trelldom, that caught me by surprise and made me not want to listen to the rest of the record, this blew me away. The more I listened to it, the more I went back to that Braiding the Story single that they released, the more I enjoyed it. So I expect the same of this one. Let's give it a spin. So like with Braiding the Stories, loads of surprises. It certainly doesn't sound like a rehash of anything off of Ghosts Invited. It does sound, in fairness though, much more like a traditional black metal song, albeit with Gaahl doing singing rather than screaming. But there is a more traditional black metal element to this track than there was on the previous single. That being said, I absolutely love it. Gaahl sounds so unique, has become such a confident singer, so much more confident in his clean singing than he was on the previous record. I mentioned it on the previous single too. It's just again evident on this single. And then every single other person in the band. I mean, what a fucking lineup. You've got Spectre, otherwise known as Kevin Cavall on drums. He is also the drummer for From the Vastland, Horizon Ablaze, and Swart Elder, a fucking savage behind that kit. Like really, really goes to town on that thing, and everybody else sounds superb as well. So production-wise, musicianship-wise, performance-wise, and frankly, the song craft of Gaahl's Wyrd also sounds like it's evolved. They actually sound to me like a more cohesive, more coherent band than they did on the first record. And that, I think, is a very good thing. So, top-notch. No question. I cannot wait to hear the rest of this album. And like I said, it is coming out on June the 6th. Something else I should add to that, actually, whilst we're talking about it. It's been a couple of quiet weekends, I would say. But the second half of this year, I think, is going to be something quite extraordinary. New Trivax, I've heard the whole thing. The reviews are starting to trickle through already, so I'm sure I can mention it. It is phenomenal. If you like the previous Trivax album, this one blows it away in every single aspect. Cheyenne is also really poking the bear in ways that nobody else in the metal scene, I think, has the guts to do, particularly insofar as his views on the Islamic faith. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. But yeah, this is the best thing Trivax has ever done, and I do think it's a record that, if Osmos handle it correctly, it is really, really going to make people sit up and take notice of that band. So phenomenal. Last week, I teased it. Again, I'm pretty sure I can mention it. The new Werewolves, I've heard the whole thing. Masterpiece. Death metal on a level that nobody in 2025 is likely to top. And I would say every single thing that I've loved about the 5 Werewolves albums that they've released to date has just been amplified on this new one. So brace yourselves for that. If you're a Werewolves fan, you are in for a treat. This is the best thing that they've ever done, which is mind-blowing considering the fact that they release a new album every year. And then the other one that I'll give you guys a little taster of, New Tombs, I've heard that too. I heard last year a demo that Mike had done that he shared with some of us, and at the time I thought to myself, this has got an extraordinary amount of potential. Then he shared the album with me very kindly a couple of weeks ago, and I listened to the thing, and I said to him, I think this is the best thing you've ever done. I was a big fan of The Grand Annihilation, which is an album that he, from my interactions with him, didn't seem to really enjoy. But what he has done with this new album is he's taken some of the best parts, particularly some of the kind of post-punk elements of that record, and he has molded it quite effortlessly into a far more extreme palette. Sorry, no such word as extreme, a more extreme palette. And just put together an album that I think combines the best of what he did with the previous Tombs record with The Grand Annihilation, and is something that sounds like an evolution and a refinement at the same time for the band. So phenomenal stuff. And again, if you're a Tombs fan, I think people are going to be super excited about that. So that's 3 I know that are coming out this year that are going to make your knees buckle, and I would suggest Gaahl's Wyrd is probably going to do the same. Noralsk out of Canada probably hoping to get in on that conversation. It says here, Canadian extreme doomers Norulsk have released a lyric video for Dombre et de glace la asphyxie. Fuck knows what that means. Sorry that we voted for Justin Trudeau. It says here the song is off their latest full-length effort. Antipol, haven't heard that full-length effort, but let's hear what the song sounds like. Some heavy Paradise Lost vibes there, but I love it. I got to say, when the song started, the first 30 seconds or so, I thought, "What the fuck are we listening to?" Yeah, and then it found its feet. Definitely a very strong influence of Greg McIntosh's riff style that goes throughout the sequence where it's picked up speed, but it kind of has its own thing going here, and it's not just because of the French. Again, all kidding aside, I actually think the French vocals or the French lyrics sound quite cool. But yeah, it's got a lot of very, very apparent influences, but it's got enough of its own thing going here to make this very interesting. So an album I will most definitely be checking out. Norulsk is the name of the band once again, and that new album is called Antipol. We'll for sure be giving that a listen. A couple of questions. We have one from Medioc343. He said, will we get another hi-fi setup update this year? And I did actually respond to Medioc343 on YouTube, and I said, if you're keen on one, definitely. I have made a few changes since the end of last year, so I'd be more than happy to film one if people are interested in seeing it. He seemed to be keen as well. So Legion, if you are keen, then make sure you let me know in the comments. And it's Easter weekend this coming weekend, so I'll have a couple of days off. I do have a new lens on my camera now. In case you didn't notice, I'm looking even more striking than usual. I'll film one and I'll give you guys a full rundown, everything that's on the rack: speakers, amplifiers, DAC, the whole shebang. Shunned with Malice has asked, if you were to start a band, what genre would it be, and what would be the lyrical and visual approach? I would love to give you something really cool and really mind-blowing, yeah. Black metal that sounds like Akukaka meets Funeral Mist. But the reality of it is, I will probably never start a band. I don't have the musical talent to be able to play in a band. I don't have the songwriting capability to do anything that I wouldn't think is rubbish. And I have tried. I used to be a little bit more diligent when playing the guitar. I tried from a young age to write music. I would find that I would write something and just instantly hate it. So, in a weird way, that's kind of why sometimes I'm harsher on certain bands, because I think to myself, when there are bands out there that are very clearly setting the standard, how are you not holding yourself to that standard? Like, why did I have the voice in my head that said, stop, don't do this shit. You're not good enough to do it, but you don't. So, yeah, Shunned with Malice, like I said, I would love to start a band. I would love to be able to be in a black metal band, love to be in a death metal band. I would just love to be on stage with a band making music, but I don't have the capability. I don't have the vocal capability. I don't have the capability as a guitarist or as a bassist. I know music really well, but I can't write anything that I don't find completely and utterly reprehensible after 2 days of living with it. So, right. Baba Kian Konsari, and it's such a long name. I hope I've not fucked it up. He's asked me, talk about labels, underground ones, one by one, first in Europe, Norway or Germany. Again, I'm not going to go through every single label that I like. What I will say, though, is that if you like label talk, and I have had a couple of people request that in the comments and on Instagram and things like that, I am talking to Martin Koller, who is the founder of Prophecy Productions, next week. He did a really interesting interview with a website called Metal One. And basically the fucking loser that was interviewing him was badgering him throughout the interview and really trying to push him into a corner, asking him about sus bands that he had signed to the label and blah, blah, fucking blah. And eventually I felt like the answer that he gave him was so beautifully articulate and shut him up so quickly that I just had to reach out to him and get him on the show. So we did a really, really fun conversation where I went into detail with him about things like what Prophecy Productions looks for, when it comes to signing a band. I kind of figured, if anybody of any one of the many people that have submitted independent projects to me is ever interested in signing with a label, at least you'll kind of get a sense from the inside of what, label owners are looking for before they add a band to the roster. So very fun conversation. I'll probably drop that one next week, but I've got a lot in the diary. Daiva, who I have been raving about, that's finally happening. I'm recording that in two days' time. I've got Johan from This Gift is a Curse. And then I've got a couple of others that are bubbling away in the background. So make sure you watch the space, my friends, because this year there's just not been a shortage of guests at all. So, okay, next up we've got a new song by Necrophobic. So it says here, as part of their newly released 3-track EP Nordanved, the Swedish metal masters Necrophobic have premiered an official video for the title track. This EP comes as a digital version with 2 additional songs, Blackened the Horizon and a cover of Wasps' The Torture Never Stops. I would fucking love to be listening to that, but that's not what's on offer for us right now. So we're going to listen to the title track, Nordanved. So let's compare and contrast. I think this is almost as accessible as Baest that we listened to earlier. But the difference between this and Baest is I actually believe in what these guys are doing and what these guys are singing. They convince me that what they are offering me here is truly sincere, and that there wasn't a producer in the studio saying, if you do this or if you sound like this, more people are going to like you, or if you or there wasn't a conscious effort made by the band to be more appealing to a broader group of people. Necrophobic have done what Necrophobic always do. I think they're actually becoming better songwriters in their old age. Last year's In the Twilight Grey album was fucking excellent, and this to me sounds like it's even better. So I love that opening laid-back groove. I think Joachim does a phenomenal job of kind of just getting what's the right word? Just rolling along with the drums. That riff is infectious. It's catchy. I think that Anders sounds superb on the vocals. And then note to anybody that wants to record an extreme metal album, Tobias Christiansen's bass is how your bass needs to sound. So well produced, well played, superbly written, great song, top notch. No other way to describe it. Now, from one veteran group to another, Sodom have dropped their new single. It's called Trigger Discipline. Marco said to me that this is one I need to check out, and I have not gotten a chance to do so yet. So we're gonna listen to it right now. It says here, thrash metal veterans Sodom have released a lyric video for its new single Trigger Discipline, taken from their upcoming album The Arsonist. It is due for release on June 27th, 2025 via Steam Hammer Records. I know I let that one run a little longer than I would normally do a song, but that fucking solo was ripping. I mean, solos to me they're great when the song has a need for them, but a lot of times bands just toss in solos for the sake of doing so, and I find it annoying. Yeah, it just sounds superb. Adds so much to the song. The track itself is pretty decent too. The last Sodom record that I really got excited about was War and Pieces, which came out in 2010. Since then, they've kind of skated by. I mean, I'm a big fan of Obsessed by Cruelty, Persecution Mania, and Agent Orange. You know, the old stuff is very, very good. What I will give them is this. Tom Angel Ripper is 62 years old, and he sounds more badass than a great number of people that are half his age. Not only that, but if I had to compare them to Dark Angel, who we heard earlier, I think this is better. I think the riff is better. I think they sound more unique, and they sound weirdly, I don't know if this is a fair word to use, but they sound more relevant to me. And then the other thing that I would say, by comparison to another famous German thrash band, Creator, this takes a steamy dump on anything that Creator has done for the last 2 decades. So yeah, I think that's a thumbs up. I don't necessarily think it's worthy of a top notch, but I think it's a thumbs up. Best thing I've heard by Sodom for 15 years, basically. Okay, I said if I'm drunk enough, I'll check out a Catatonia song. Now, they have put out their new single. It says here, Nightmares as Extensions of the Waking State has been set as the official title of the newly released album, or newly announced album from Catatonia. That is also due out on June the 6th. Big mistake, schoolboy error. Wyrd will be occupying anybody who has good tastes music listening that day, and certainly for weeks thereafter. Anyway, it was recorded by Lawrence McCrory at NBS Audio and the City of Glass, mixed by Adam Noble, mastered by Robin Schmidt at 2496 Mastering. For a preview, check out a video for the first streaming single, Lilac. No, folks, I'm afraid if you're going to tell me this is cutting-edge heaviness, then you may as well go and listen to the new Coldplay album. Maybe that's harsh. It's not as dreadful as Coldplay, but it's not far off. It just doesn't do it for me. I know there's a lot of Catatonia fans, including many that listen to this podcast. I mean no offense, just my opinion, but that sucks. So anyway, let's move on now to some controversy. I mentioned at the beginning of the show that I was going to talk about a scandal featuring none other than the evil Elvis himself. Over on Lambgoat, posted on the 30th of March, there was an article with the headline, Glenn Danzig blasted by fans for using Nazi symbol on new tour merch. The article, I'll read to you guys very quickly. Fans have taken to social media to blast Glenn Danzig over a controversial merch design. During his March 29 show at the Kia Forum in Inglewood, the frontman was selling a shirt and a poster featuring an apparent black sun symbol. That emblem originated in Nazi Germany and has remained popular with neo-Nazis and other far-right groups. And then they've got a whole bunch of stuff here where people are just basically being the kind of dicks on both left and right that you'd expect them to be. A guy called Jam on Twitter writes, "God spell Danzig without Nazi." Another guy writes, "What the fuck is this, Glenn Danzig? This was designed by the fucking Nazis, so don't try and hide behind. It's an ancient symbol. They co-opted and I'm taking it back. This is flatly Nazi shit." And so it goes on. I saw another article, and I can't remember what website it was on, where some fuckface National Socialist from I think it's a website called Volkskamp said, he's one of us. Now, I hate to break it to both sides, but you're both fucking delusional. Number one, I don't know whether or not Glenn actually signed off on this T-shirt, or whether or not, this is something that was sold at shows subsequent to the one at the Kia Forum. But I certainly know Glenn Danzig, over the course of nearly 5 decades in the music business, is a man who loves to stir the pot. I mean, this was a dude who quite casually sang in Last Caress by the Misfits, "I've got something to say, I raped your mother today." This is not a guy who is one who shies away from controversy. So my suspicion is that if he did this, yes, it's probably intentional. Did he mean it to be something that is directly tied to Nazism, and that after 50 years in the music industry, he's finally coming out and showing his true colors? I highly fucking doubt it. Glenn has been in the public eye for the better part of, like I said, nearly 50 years. I don't believe, as far as I'm aware, there's been any stories of him being either a racist or a Nazi or anything in between during that time. And surely at some point, whether it was the 80s or, the fucking, the high-flying 70s, at some point something must have come out, and they never did. So, was it intentional? Perhaps. Like I said, no one knows whether he signed off on it. Do I put it past him to stir the pot with something like that? Yeah, no, I don't. Absolutely not. He has form for it throughout his career. Do I care that he did it? No, but at the same time, when fucking idiots from Volkskamp says you're one of them now, maybe you've gone a step too far. But that being said, I mean, again, is it going to make me stop listening to Danzig? Absolutely fucking not. Glenn, as everybody knows, is a firm favorite of mine, and I will never stop listening to his music regardless. But of course, the likes of Metal Sucks and Metal Injection and Loudwire was stirring up hysteria on this as long as they could possibly do it. What I would say I think is very, very interesting is this to me is a great example of how the culture has shifted versus 4 years ago. Had this happened 4 years ago, we'd still be hearing about it 2 weeks later. We'd be hearing about it 2 months later. Kind of like we still hear about Phil Anselmo at Dime Bash in 2016. Basically, the fact that nothing happened whatsoever after this was posted, no one seemed to give a shit, it kind of just shows you people are sick and tired of it. And, this comes back to the warning that a lot of people have sounded, that if you continue to call every single person that you disagree with and that you dislike a Nazi, then eventually, if everybody's a Nazi, then no one's a Nazi. And actually, it then puts you in a position where you're not going to necessarily be as effective at calling out the real bad guys, because no one places a shred of credibility in a word that you have to say. So, Danzig, you're still an okay dude by me, even though, in your old age, you maybe want to cool it just a little bit. And as far as the fucking symbol is concerned, I mean, you have seen that, you have seen other bands use that. I know that it has pagan roots, blah, blah. I don't need to hear the fucking history of it. The reality of it is there's a lot of symbols that have roots in something else that have been co-opted by scum of the earth. That doesn't necessarily mean you should use it just because, somebody at some point believed it meant something else. So wanted to talk about that. The next thing I wanted to talk about is the trailer for the new Metallica documentary, Metallica Saved My Life. Now, we learn about this over on the Democrat's Guide to Rock Music. It says here, Metallica has announced a new film project from award-winning director Jonas Åkerlund. Metallica Saved My Life explores the world of Metallica through the lives of their fans, including the band members themselves who have supported each other through highs, lows, trials, and triumph for more than 4 decades. See it all this spring and summer in this brand new, not quite finished film. Let's check out the trailer, and then I'll give you guys my take on it.
Metallica is a state of mind.
Metallica is unapologetically real and vulnerable.
Metallica is
hope, freedom, escape.
Every fan has a story.
I was a dork.
Always been kind of a loner.
I was a weirdo.
Why are you listening to this white people music?
It didn't fit like the stereotype.
You're doing something different than everybody else.
I want to hear them. I want to hear them all.
Growing up in Civil War, I found the music that had been the soundtrack to my life.
The Metallica subculture and Mutual is completely different. We have an identity here. It gives me the lion heart.
Metallica is all of us together. It belongs to all of us.
Whatever you want to put on that, religion, cult, family. Whatever label, I don't care. It's a gathering of like-minded people that are there to celebrate life. It's called Metallica.
One word comes to mind, my friends: smug. Look, I'm not taking away from the fact that Metallica have been a net positive in a lot of people's lives, including mine. I'm sat here with my Metallica beer mug from the last time that I saw them play. And I've been listening to them for a long time. And, you know, when I was a troubled young man in my teens, I loved me some Metallica. But at the same time, like, wouldn't it be better if somebody not Metallica was bankrolling this? If this were a third-party endeavor? Like, I could see somebody like, I don't know, like me saying, you know what would be a great idea? Let's interview fans of Metallica about what the band meant to them and then go to the band and ask for their comment. Instead, this is Metallica producing it, so they're bankrolling the fucking thing, getting a director that they've had work with them previously to do it for them. And I just kind of get the impression from what I saw there from James that he's sitting there patting himself on the shoulder like, it's Metallica. It's just fucking stupid. It's just lame. Will it change my view on Metallica? I mean, I always have a soft spot for them. There's no question. Like I said before, they're just this band where they do so many things that really should make me fucking hate them. I mean, Saint Anger tested my love of this band to a degree that I didn't think possible. But for whatever reason, part of me will always root for them. But fuck, this trailer, it did push it relatively far. So anyway, just thought I would share that little nugget with you guys. One thing I also want to share with you, and this is not a paid endorsement or a plug, which is why I'm doing it at the end of the episode. As many of you, I have struggled buying metal merchandise from different stores. Very often the quality of the t-shirts is fucking shit. Very often the print on the t-shirts fucking suck. So the only place that I have found to date that I've actually said, you know, that the quality coming from here is really, really good. The t-shirts last a long time. They look cool. They're form-fitting. Has been the Deborah Morty mail order store until now. After I spoke to Justin, a.k.a. J-Dog, I actually went on to the Hells Headbangers shop and I bought myself a whole bunch of t-shirts, some really cool stuff. Sinister, Crisian, Sacrifice, Destroyer 666, Destructor, Man's Music represented on the shirts. The Thing t-shirt that I've got on right now is also from Hells Headbangers. I got to say, I was very, very surprised. Great quality shirts, great quality printing. And, you know, not to give away any trade secrets, but Justin packs the stuff when he sends it in, or when his minions send it, in such a way that you don't get fucked with import duties. So, like I said, there's no hidden fucking discount code in the description. There's no reason that I'm sharing this with you guys other than the fact that, you know, I have bought from a lot of places and come away with a great deal of disappointment during those transactions. So sharing with you from the mistakes I've made, next time you buy metal merch, go to Hells Headbangers and buy yourself some shit there, because it is very, very good quality and they ship worldwide. They help you avoid those tariffs, those import duties. I strongly recommend them and I strongly endorse them. Folks, I'm going to wrap up for this week. I finally made it after the fucking most painful episode to record. I think I turned in a pretty decent news rant, but you guys can decide on that for yourselves. I just want to say thank you very much for listening to the show, for the support that you show me. I'm now going to edit together the sucker and upload it and then get to bed. But I'm going to play out for you guys with really one of the only songs that we could have played on a old school themed episode like this. Hellhammer coming at you with Messiah. I'm coming at you by saying whatever it is that you are doing and wherever it is that you are, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you bad motherfuckers again next week.